Hi, guys. It's Kat Kabira, and Happy New Year, and greetings from Portugal. So, I just had a recent experience that motivated me to share this video today. And it's geared towards those of you who are potentially have patterns of perfectionism, are highly self critical, and maybe you even have a history of some sort of abuse. And the theme is how to receive feedback without going into shame. So, as humans, we're going to be messy at times. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to inadvertently step on one another's toes. I know as I'm in a new country and used to a very different way of living, it's I'm actually people are going to have to give me feedback of hey, we actually don't do it that way. This is how we do it. And if someone has a high level of self-esteem, a really strong sense of self-worth or a sense of self, then the feedback can be taken exactly as it is. Oh, okay, thanks for telling me. I'll be more mindful. And it will be a more neutral response. Someone being hey, you're wearing red, but we're supposed to wear blue. And it's oh, okay, cool. I'll do that without some sort of emotional charge or big reaction. But if there's a history of abuse, and when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking more physical or emotional. And also just even if somehow you've inherited it yourself or conditioned it, or it was given by your parents, where there was a lot of perfectionism and criticism, then when feedback's given, instead of it being more taking it as it is and having that response on the inside that actually matches the energy of the incident or the feedback, it ends up being a much bigger thing. I know for myself, probably 20 years ago, a good friend of mine actually had to admit, he's it's hard for me to give you feedback because your entire world just falls apart. And I was a little embarrassed to hear that, but I remember thinking, well, why is that? And so there's that protection that we'll have, almost of I must be perfect, I should be perfect, and if anyone points out that I'm not, my entire universe falls apart. And I'll speak for me personally. I did grow up with abuse, so to me, if there's always been this over efforting of making sure everything is okay, making sure my actions are okay in regards to others, that I'm behaving the right way, I'm appearing the right way, I'm not making anyone upset, because it's if someone's upset, that means I'm going to get hurt. And I'm doing anything to prevent that, and that's the wound. And there also can be wounds, we all have different core wounds. There can also be wounds of I'm just a really bad person and I'm fucking up all the time, or it can be it's all my fault, and if you hear my languaging, it's very childish. Our wounds are created when we're children, when our language is just beginning. So that's going to be dramatic and intense. It's all my fault. I'm so bad. Nobody loves me. But, and as we could kind of smirk at it, oh, childish languaging, our body believes it to be real. And the pain that we have as humans is that we'll be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, wandering around the planet, still with this child belief of it's all my fault. I'm so bad. I deserve to be punished, or, whatever they are. There's so many, and, you get to reflect on what yours are. So, for me, I had to actually, in order to function in the world, because it's not helpful for myself or others for people to be scared to give me feedback, right? That's not healthy. That creates no growth whatsoever. That creates no authenticity. So, what I had to do was to be able to practice, when someone's giving me feedback, knowing I've got a part of me that feels real, but it's not real, that thinks I'm so bad and a terrible punishment's going to happen if you tell me anything that's a little bit of a criticism or observation even, so that I can witness that part of me, but not engage, not indulge it, not believe in it. And this is like a longer practice that I've shared elsewhere. And if you work with me privately and in groups, like you'll get this of like, how do you actually start to create some space with your wounds so they don't control you? So that way it's like you can witness like, okay, like this is coming in. I am not some horrible human being, and you can even start to witness maybe another part of you that goes into shame. And I don't know how much you're aware of your shame, like shame is a way that we control others and how we get controlled and how we may not even allow ourselves to go certain places because we're so scared of that shame, and shame is a very primal thing because, way back when, if we were ostracized from our community, that level of shame is protection to make sure that you're actually not kicked out of your community, out of your village, where like, basically you lose like your source of food and warmth and protection because it's wild out there outside of the village. So, shame is a very primal thing and it does have its positive function. But for a lot of us in modern times, it also prevents us from really being ourselves. And we might micromanage ourselves just to not touch that shame. And I don't know how you experience shame, but for me, shame feels like death. I literally feel like I'm dying. And it's something that like I had to learn to tolerate the sensations of like, oh my God, like I just want to disappear. I'm so bad. Like it's like the worst feelings on the planet. And it's something where if you can love yourself through like observing that part of you who's feeling ashamed, that's going to really start to strengthen you in a new way. And what's also helpful, because we do need others, and when I've worked with therapists, they've done this for me, where they've actually sat with me while I'm experiencing massive shame and just thinking like, I don't even deserve to be here on this planet. And they're like, hey, like I'm with you, and I'm not rejecting you. I'm not abandoning. I may not be happy with your behavior, but that doesn't mean that like you have to be punished as a result or kicked out. So for those of us where if we've had abuse, and I'll say like having controlling parents, having highly critical perfectionists, that is like a subtle level. We could say a subtle level of abuse. And there's a lot of ways that we could stretch this, but for the sake of the brevity of the video, and then again, speaking from personal experience, where if you've been abused, I think the hardest thing for me, and I'm speaking to those of you who've had this experience, is you may have done a lot of work on yourself, and there still might be that little child in you who like where it comes up for him or her from time to time, where it's like, you're still scared of that happening again, and your behavior might regress a little bit, just to create some sort of like immediate safety. So being able to witness ourselves and to even kind of create like a reality check of, is my response right now matching what I'm sensing on the outside? Like if someone's giving me this feedback and their behavior, am I having like a matching response, or is mine much more big and dramatic? And that way you can kind of hold yourself through it, where it's like, okay, like it's uncomfortable, but it's going to pass. I'm not this horrible human. I'm allowed to make mistakes. And whether you've got that perfectionist or highly critical pattern, or just, that history of abuse, knowing that you're allowed to make mistakes is such an important practice. So important. And I know when I first started investigating all of this, that's why I shifted my piano playing to more like jazz improv, because I felt like there was a way that you could play with the mistakes, and I became more abstract in my art. I changed the way that I wrote. Even the movement practices. I prefer to go to places that are much more curious and playful, because it will start to cultivate that attitude that's so important. And that's the growth attitude right there. Being curious, being playful. Yes, we're going to make mistakes, and we can repair things. I got to admit, like this week, there's been a few things where I've had to call someone up and be like, I fucked up. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And it's like, we can repair things, like it is kindergarten lessons of just being able to say like, I'm so sorry, and really meaning it. And what actions can I do to rectify this? So I'm just saying this because it's not fun to be a perfectionist. That's like a buzzkill, right? And you don't want to like live with this highly critical part of you, like controlling you, or the perfectionism, or like we got to bring tenderness if we've had things happen when we're young. And it's just a reminder that you can witness the pain moving through your body, and you don't have to believe it to be real. You can just let it be a wave that moves through. So, Happy New Year. I hope that you're staying cozy wherever you are. And I hope to see you somewhere, either virtually or in person soon.